What's up? Welcome to the Tailgate Debate. I'm Anthony. I'm here with Zach, Jamie, and our guest for tonight is David. This is our special instant reactions episode to the new college playoff rankings, the second rankings that come out so far. So guys, we just watched the rankings get revealed on the TV, and we were chatting a little bit as they popped up, but we've seen them all now. I'll just go through real quick, just for the episode. So Georgia landed at number 1, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU round out the top 4, all undefeated. I don't think any shockers there. 5 Tennessee, 6 Oregon, 7 LSU, 8 USC, 9 UCLA, 10 Alabama. 11 Ole Miss, and I'm gonna put Ole Miss in there because I actually think they're important for a couple reasons. But I'm going to stop there because 12 is Clemson and on down. I don't think there's anybody who's really relevant in terms of the playoff. But Notre Dame did jump up to 20, Jamie. I know you're going to want to talk about them a little bit. Let's start there, though, because Notre Dame had a big jump to get all the way up to 20. Were you surprised by that, or you thought that was justified, or what'd you think?
I actually don't even want to talk about it. It's not like we're a playoff contender. I'm okay with the jump. Our resume is very weird. We're 4-1 against ranked teams, and we're 0-2 against Marshall and Stanford. So it's really hard to kind of grade us or rank us. But I don't like it. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So we should probably focus on important stuff.
I think it's relevant in terms of resumes, though. And Notre Dame is actually, I mean, it sucks for them that they're out, but they're still playing a part in terms of what's going to happen with how the playoff shapes up. Certainly with what they did to Clemson and with the game that they got at the end of the season with USC. So they're still going to have something to say about the playoff, even if they're not going to be in it. All right. So what did you guys think about the top seeds there? Zach, any takeaways from this? Are you surprised by anything?
No, I think it was pretty much as expected. I think Tennessee's in great shape, really, because the closest team behind us is Oregon, who we had the mutual opponent with, in Georgia, and their loss was a lot worse. I mean, people can try to pretend the game didn't matter because it was in September instead of November, but it does at the end of the day. Michigan and Ohio State are going to knock each other off, and I think TCU is going to drop one. So I still think we're going to be the 3 seed. I think the playoff is going to end up being Georgia, Michigan, Tennessee, and then Oregon.
So you think Michigan's going to take Ohio State in that game?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we all know that the winner of that's most, because neither one of them are going to lose because they don't play anybody until they play each other. They only played one game this season, and that's when they play each other in a couple of weeks. I mean, I guess if you want to count Penn State.
Well, Michigan has I would say Michigan has kind of a sneaky game with Illinois because Illinois has a really statistically good defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if, they do what they do and fuck that one up.
Yeah. And Ohio State does have the win with Notre Dame too, and that's actually shaping up to be a quality win for them now. So actually, their resume is going to look a little bit better because of all that. So, but Ohio State's there anyway. They're there on brand, so they're not going to go anywhere unless they lose. So we all agree that the winner of Ohio State, Michigan, is in. David, any takeaways from the playoffs? Are you surprised by anything, or is there anything you would have different?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, they're wanting to let this all get played out on the field. Put all the undefeated teams at the top. It is what it is. We're still 3 weeks away from the end of the season. What I think is going to happen, though, we don't need chaos. When they said we needed chaos to get in, no, we don't. We need the season to play out the way it's expected to play out. Texas is 75% chance to win against TCU next weekend, according to ESPN. I mean, if somehow TCU skates by that one, they've still got, like you said, a rematch in the championship game in a few weeks. They're going to drop out of it. They're not going to make it through. Ohio State, Michigan, one of the two of them is going to drop out. Like you said earlier, the real X factor here is what happens with Oregon, USC. I think USC is overrated. Oregon may be a little underrated, honestly. They're 8-1, but I kind of agree. They have come on strong as the season's progressed, kind of like we did last year. I think if they beat USC and went out the rest of the season, they've got a really strong resume. You say, all right, one game, very beginning of the season, I can write that off.
Yeah, it does get a little bit scary. If TCU wins out, it does get scary for Tennessee. I mean, if we had the Alabama label on our helmet, or we had the Ohio State label, I wouldn't think it would matter, but I do, if Oregon wins out and TCU wins out, it gets a little bit scary. Cause you're only talking about fighting for one spot, the loser of Michigan, Ohio State. So really, I think in order to solidify and make some space, you need TCU and then the loser of Michigan, Ohio State to go and create a couple openings there. And just in case somebody makes that late push, and we should be able to just to win and move into the spot that we need to move into. So let me just ask you guys, because there's a lot of people and there's some conflicting opinions. We talked a little bit about this on our last episode, but there's a lot of people that think if LSU wins out with 2 losses as the SEC champion with wins over Bama and Georgia in the SEC title, they would have to beat Georgia in the SEC title, that they would be a lock to be in. I've heard Heather Dinich say that, Joey Galloway, different people in ESPN. Some people say, nope, they're blocked by Tennessee because they lost head to head and Tennessee would only have 1 loss. What are your guys' thoughts on that? You think if they win the SEC, they're a lock to get in?
I don't see how you could use any kind of rational argument to put them in over us. Maybe if, Michigan drops a game to Illinois, then beats Ohio State, and there really is chaos. I think as a third SEC team, maybe, but I don't see how they could put them above us when we beat them at home by 30 and we have less losses.
Let's scratch us for a second. So Jamie, do you see a scenario where LSU gets in with 2 losses over any 1-loss team? Over a 1-loss Michigan, over a 1-loss, anybody?
No, it would have to be absolute chaos. And for LSU to win the SEC would be absolute chaos too. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you would have to have, all those teams from 2 through 6 to lose another game.
That's how I see it too. That's how I see it too. David, were you any different thoughts? Do you agree on
Nah,
that?
completely agree. Completely agree. They're probably a little overrated right now. Yeah, they beat Alabama. But are they really number 7 in the country? We'll see over the
Yeah.
next few weeks, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah, I actually have LSU losing this weekend to Arkansas, and if they don't, they definitely get smacked by Georgia in the SEC title. I don't know how LSU's winning. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth because we talked about them a fair amount on the last episode. I don't think they're that good. I think really the game against Alabama is more of an indictment against Alabama. Alabama looks like shit. And so, if LSU at home was able to take advantage of some mistakes, whatever the case is, but I think we all agree LSU is just not that good. They're not going to be there in the end. I'm a little bit surprised that Alabama is still number 10 ahead of Ole Miss, who's 8-1. Clemson's 8-1, but Clemson's resume sucks.
Bama's 9. Are you looking at the AP or playoff ranking?
Playoff.
Because you said Clemson was 12 too, which is AP.
Oh shit, I'm looking at the AP. Yeah, my fault. I thought I pulled up the college football rankings. So Alabama's 9?
9.
Yeah, that's worse. Do you guys think Alabama's number 9 with 2 losses?
They're purely getting by on reputation. If you look at their resume, what have they done? Their most impressive win maybe is winning at Texas A&M with a backup quarterback. No,
Texas is more impressive than that.
Yeah, and Texas, they also hurt their quarterback the first play or the first drive.
Alabama's resume sucks.
Yeah.
How many close games has Alabama had this season that they just barely skated by? Both
Quite a
Texas
few.
teams.
Might only be the close, the Texas and the Texas A&M games, but then they lost 2 games, and they don't really have any great wins. Their resume sucks.
Yeah,
they could easily be 8-4 team, 7-5 team. Look at LSU. They lose to A&M. They lose to Texas. All could have happened. They're really not that good of a team this year.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised to see them at number 9. I think that's a pretty generous ranking. It's good for us for our resume, and it's good for LSU for their resume, and then it makes it better for us with the win against LSU. So it all works out in our favor. So that's great. But I do think Alabama will beat Ole Miss, but I think Ole Miss should be ranked ahead of them right now. It's kind of frustrating because I heard last week the committee say, well, we put Ohio State at 2 because we think they're the best all-around team. So, I mean, it's the argument that they take, and I'm not arguing that Tennessee shouldn't be at 5. It's fine, whatever. We got a couple weeks to play. But is there argument that TCU is a better all-around team than Tennessee? There's no fucking way. So the criteria is gonna continue to change every week with this committee. I really hate it. I hate this system.
I think they're playing defensively though. I mean, they don't wanna put anything that's gonna be controversial right now. They just wanna say, hey, early in the season, we still need to let this stuff play out.
Yeah, yeah, it makes you wonder what they're gonna do with that on that last weekend, though. It's kind of unpredictable. I think. I think that last weekend should give us some indication depending on where people are. That 4th spot team should
I
be
think-
nervous.
I think that you guys being 5, like you guys are in great position to just kind of let everything happen in front of you and just kind of fall into place. I do think that the committee is going to ride Oregon, and I do think that they're going to put them in the 3 spot with the conference championship.
You
I
think
just don't.
so?
I do. I don't think it's right, but I do think they're going to value Oregon.
Disagree. Here's why. Look at this. The entire college football apparatus, at the end of the day, it is a competition, it's a sport, but it's also a show. And when you start looking at the showmanship of the Final Four, and you say Oregon goes number 3, Tennessee goes number 4, assuming that's how it works out. And that's my assumption. TCU is going to fall out. It's going to be us and Oregon who are fighting for that last spot.
Mhm.
They put Oregon at 3. They play Ohio State. They put us at 4. We play Georgia. There's no narrative there. There's no Hooker versus Stroud Heisman candidate race. There's no Tennessee can play in to get a chance at a rematch against Georgia in the final. The narrative's much better the other way around.
Plus the
don't-
Bo Nix, yeah.
Well, I don't
Go
think that they want to see an SEC all ACC or all SEC championship game, unless
I don't. I agree with you, but I think that's actually where they're going to fuck up is matching us up with Ohio State, thinking that Ohio State's going to beat us.
That's what I think too. That's exactly what I think too. I think that they think that Ohio State will take care of Tennessee in the first round. So I think that's exactly, will be part of the rationale. I absolutely think we'll take the 3 spot. I don't, if we win our last 3 games and if it plays out the way we think, TCU drops 1, Oregon wins out. I do think Tennessee takes the 3, Oregon takes the 4. Oregon gets their rematch with Georgia and the Bo Nix. And I agree with the narratives and the storylines because they're not avoiding a rematch. I would say that they would probably avoid a rematch in the first round if they could, but they can't because Ohio State's or Michigan is going to be at 2 and Tennessee or Oregon would be a rematch with Georgia. So you're getting the rematch either way. I think they're going to give it. I think they're going to give it to Oregon. I just think that's what they're going to do. And I think they're going to make Tennessee go against Ohio State, thinking Ohio State will take care of business.
I just think that the committee is going to pull some shit where they're going to value Oregon's conference championship if they win the Pac-12, and they're going to put them at 3. They're going to make you guys play Georgia again, and then it won't be an all SEC championship game. I really think.
Let me just tell you guys, I don't think Oregon's the one who's going to win out. I think Oregon is going to lose their last game against Oregon State. I've been on the Beavers all season. I'm almost positive. I got to see where that game is being played. I haven't looked at it yet. Have you guys looked to see where that game is being played?
No.
If they're, you guys aren't up to speed with Oregon State. I mean, what the fuck, man?
You have
Who's
this
your
fast.
number 4?
Do what?
Who's your
You-
number 4?
If Oregon goes down, it would depends on what goes down with USC. If USC maintains their 1-loss status or UCLA, I think could sneak back in. Possibly.
CLA.
Listen,
Nobody's talking about them.
I know that, but there's 3 teams nobody's talking about that are very much in play still. USC, UCLA, and Ole Miss. I don't think LSU can get in, so I don't think they're a legit threat. But Ole Miss, if LSU goes into Arkansas and loses this weekend, and I think they may very well do that, it's a 1-point game. Ole Miss is the leader in the SEC West. All they have to do is beat Bama, and they have a walk to the SEC title game with 1 loss. Now I think they'll get worked by Georgia, but if they win the SEC with 1 loss, they will get in over Tennessee. There is no head-to-head.
Yeah, and they've got the kind of team to pull out some kind of miraculous win against Georgia.
Ole Miss.
They could do it.
No,
Yeah.
no way. They struggle with Kentucky. They've struggled every other game. They're
Ole
gonna
Miss-
I think
get.
they could.
They're gonna give up 50 to Bama, and even if they were to beat Bama, Georgia's gonna stomp them.
Yeah, Ole Miss is not a player.
No, I don't think they're a legit player, but they're very much a legit threat in the SEC West right now.
Balls
They're-
bounce the
they're-
right
they're in
way.
control, yeah.
Football goes that way sometimes.
They're in
Miss-
control of their own destiny, but come on.
They have a path, but it's not realistic.
Yeah.
Oregon
You-
plays at Oregon State. I don't know if you guys saw this running back for Oregon State. He's a beast, man. He's a beast. He really is. I think Oregon State is going to beat Oregon in that last game of the season.
No, you don't.
You got, huh?
You don't.
I do. I just said it.
You
Think I
want
lied?
maybe you want them to. You don't actually think it's going to happen.
I don't think we need them to. I really don't care. I honestly don't. We need TCU to go away.
They will.
That we need. Yeah.
They will.
Once,
Yeah, I mean-
go ahead, Zach.
I would say part of the reason I feel so good about our position is because of the head-to-head with LSU, who has 2 losses, and also the fact that us and Oregon both played Georgia. We played at Georgia in a crazy ass environment, and it was a 2-touchdown game. Oregon lost by fucking 50.
You guys,
On a
you guys.
neutral site.
Tennessee's also in the 5 spot, and there's 2 teams. There's 2 teams ahead of you guys that are going to lose.
Read my
Yeah.
mind. Read my mind. Do you think there's any path for Michigan or Ohio State to stay in if they lose?
If Michigan loses like a 3-point game and Oregon goes down or something, I could see those fucking assholes putting in 2
No.
Big Ten teams.
No, what would have to happen is USC has to lose, UCLA has to lose, Oregon has to lose. I don't think any of those guys are getting in over a 1-loss Pac-12 or possibly. I don't think TCU. I think if TCU loses 1 game, the Big 12 is out. I think the ACC is already out. TCU's the last hope for the Big 12, but I think the Pac-12 has 3 people in the mix with USC.
I don't think the Pac-12 gets that kind of respect.
Yeah, but
Pac-
you have a 4th spot.
yeah,
I know, but if Michigan's only loss is at Ohio State and it's a close game, they're going to look at the losses from the other schools and say, fuck you.
No, Michigan's resume is too bad. If they
Mhm.
lose any game, they are out. Their
Mhm.
out of conference schedule was pathetic.
Oh, I agree with you that they should be. I'm just saying the way the committee has this Big Ten fucking hard on, I wouldn't be surprised at all
See it.
if like, especially if Oregon drops a game, because
I
the way
also
that the way the rankings are right now, Michigan would have to drop to what, like 7 from 3. I don't know if the committee would do that.
Zach, Michigan wasn't in the 4 last week with Clemson bumping them with Clemson, who had played nobody. Clemson's quality wins were against Wake Forest and NC State. And they put Clemson above Michigan based on that resume. Michigan's resume is not getting any respect by the committee. None.
no Clemson was behind Michigan.
They
Right.
were? No.
No, Clemson was the 4 seed.
Yeah, it was Tennessee, Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson.
5.
So let me ask the reverse then. If Michigan beats Ohio State by a field goal, do you think they would put 2 Big Ten teams in? Because Ohio State gets all the love in the world.
That's the more dangerous scenario, just because it's Ohio State. But I don't think we should.
I think they would try to make that push. I can't see it. If well, first of all, I do agree with what those guys said on TV tonight, that style points are going to matter. If Tennessee goes out and struggles in any of these last 3 games, it's not going to be good for us. So I do think that we got to not only win, but win in a very convincing fashion. It's got to look good on paper when they come back to sit at the table. So I agree with that. But I think the only way Ohio State or Michigan get in with a loss. So I think Ole Miss would have to lose. I'm trying to pull up the rankings again now. Tell me where UCLA and USC are. One of you guys got the rankings pulled up still?
UCLA's 12, USC's 8. They all play each other.
UCLA's 12th and USC's 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, USC's in the mix. Has USC
UCLA's in the
Oregon?
mix. I agree on that one.
Yeah. So these Pac-12 teams, you're going to hear them start to make a push if TCU goes down. And we're assuming LSU. Now, if LSU beats Georgia and TCU has lost, I actually think 3 SEC teams are going to get in. If Oregon stumbles,
Not gonna happen.
then
though.
I think you're gonna hear a legit conversation. If LSU wins the SEC, the LSU, Tennessee, Georgia, and the winner of Michigan, Ohio State gets in.
No.
Not gonna happen. LSU is not beating Georgia. I
Well,
agree, it could, crazy stuff could happen if, but that's not gonna happen.
I agree. I don't think it will either, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, if all those Pac-12 teams play each other too, that'll take care of itself.
Yeah, I don't know who Oregon has left on their schedule.
Well, they have to have at least USC, right?
No, they don't
Oregon
all
ha-
play each other. They don't have divisions over there anymore.
Oregon has Washington, Utah, Oregon State.
So Utah is their last real game.
No, Oregon State.
Come on, man.
Washington's no pushover either.
Oh, so the rest of their
They've got a
schedule
path.
super tough.
Yeah.
But then when they beat all those teams, you guys will say they didn't play anyone. You can't have it both ways.
I just said Utah's the only real game they have left.
Or all 4 of them are bad.
And I think actually Utah is a weird matchup for Oregon because of the style they play where they run the ball so much and control the clock and all that.
USC has to play UCLA and Notre Dame. So
I think UCLA is going to beat their ass.
very easily drop one of those games.
Yes.
So what
Yeah, and I
happens if
think-
UCLA beats USC, then beats Oregon in the championship?
They'll
All
jump
out.
way up, but I don't know if they can make up that much ground.
Yeah, they all would be out if that happened.
Yeah.
I mean,
UCLA
Huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, I know we talked about the rankings not really mattering at this point in the season because we're all going to, play it out in the field and everything. But I do think it was a big deal that we got that 1 seed in the initial rankings so that when we lost and dropped, we didn't drop to 9 or something.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah,
these rankings kind of do matter, and UCLA being so low right now may end up fucking them over.
The only scenario where I think Tennessee could get left out would be if Tennessee or if TCU wins out and wins the
Yeah.
Big 12, they'll be in. And then if they allow Oregon, if Oregon wins out, wins the Pac-12, and they allow Oregon to jump you guys
Mhm.
because of the conference championship. Any other scenario outside of that, there's no way that they can leave out a Tennessee team with 1 loss to the number 1 team. There's no way.
Completely
agree.
agree.
And I think I think it's 50-50 if they would let Oregon jump us. But I think that's really hard to justify with the mutual opponent thing. I really do.
I don't agree if they did that. I just think that that's what they're gonna do. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean the way the committee works is they might flip a fucking coin and say, "Oh, it's tails and Ducks have tails, so I guess we'll put Oregon in." I mean they're fucking ridiculous.
I just think there's gonna be some chaos. With
Well, I think that the good thing that Tennessee has going for it is that we're in front of them now. And
Yeah.
so that's the good thing. But I think that the problem then, because Oregon, I was actually hoping LSU would be right behind us. That Oregon, there would be a space because Oregon does have to play a couple tough games and we don't have any hard games left. We've
But also conference championship weekend. If you guys are sitting idle and Oregon plays a big game and looks impressive, they're gonna look
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I mean really if TCU loses, then we're almost a lock, I would say.
For sure.
It's kind of what it
think
comes
so,
down to.
too. I think so too. I think at that point, Tennessee and Oregon are both getting in this, and everything's pretty much finalized. And I think you're just kind of rolling at that point.
In that scenario, the only thing you have to kind of worry about is the Ohio State thing. If they were to lose a close game to Michigan, the committee does typically try to get Ohio State into the playoff.
I don't see how they could only drop them to 4 though. I just don't.
Yeah, they took
Even if-
us from 1 to 5 after a loss to Georgia, right? What do they do
Yeah.
with 2 and 3 playing?
Yeah, and they would have to go to at least 5.
I think we all agree that if Tennessee gets left out of the playoff, it would be a complete fucking butt fucking for Tennessee.
Oh, it would be a butt fucking.
Well, yeah, and objectively, I think we do have the best resume of any 1-loss team. We have the most impressive wins, and we have the least bad loss. Playing at Georgia by 2 touchdowns at the end of the day.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
really you're just comparing your resume and Oregon's, where you guys have more impressive wins and a not as bad loss.
Yeah. Well, even Ohio State, like, fuck their wins. Like if they
Look,
lose
Ohio
the game, they
State-
only played 3 ranked teams all season.
Ohio State beat, their resume is gonna be Notre Dame and Penn State, a 2-loss team, a 3-loss team. And that, I mean, that's right now. And then ours is still gonna be Kentucky, LSU, a top 10, Bama, a top 10. And, I don't know who the other top 25 team was.
I also hated the way that they started the playoff show because they basically said that Oregon should have just scheduled Portland State instead of Georgia. It's like why I don't understand why it's more appealing to schedule bullshit teams and have a shitty schedule that makes you more of a playoff contender. I think it's
Yeah, I was
good.
actually going to ask you guys what you thought about that take.
Total
They
pussy.
said that?
Herbie said it.
Herb Street said because that's what the Big Ten schools are doing.
Yeah. Scheduling fucking
That's-
Chattanooga and stuff.
Yeah, they should be penalized for it. Completely.
Yes, yeah. I
As
think
should
that's where
TCU.
Herbie- I think that's where Herbie is fucking up. I think this committee, I don't think they're gonna show Ohio State or Michigan any love because of what they've done with the schedule. And Herbie going on TV and saying that, I don't think is helping the Big Ten's cause.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
I don't want to defend Ohio State, but they did schedule Notre Dame. They can't help that Notre Dame had a, slow start to the season.
no, I'm not even. It's more so Michigan. Like if you look at Michigan's
Yeah,
out of conference, it's bad, and then Clemson. Like Clemson dropped 6 spots because the rest of their schedule was trash, and they lost to us, which we're not a good team this year. And in their games, they haven't looked very good. So the committee did punish Clemson the way that they should be punished.
Yeah, and to me, that's the thing is if you're going to have that bullshit schedule, you better not have a game closer than like 30.
Yeah, but even if you have a schedule like that, you don't have any margin for error. If you lose one game, you are out. That's what
I agree. I think they need to start punishing these fucking teams for that.
Zach, I think that I do, I think that I don't trust the committee. But I do think that they sent a strong message to Michigan in week 1 when they put him at 5. Undefeated, they said, nope, we're putting you behind Clemson because you're out. I think they sent a very clear message. They didn't respect that schedule. Ohio State at 2. I don't really understand because the only win that they had better than Michigan was Notre Dame. So I think that's a big difference to have 1 at 2 and 1 at 5. But I think that's the attempt to at least schedule a big non-conference game. And so I think Michigan, if Michigan loses, they plummet. If Ohio State loses, maybe they try to keep them around. But look, in that weekend, so if we say TCU loses, you have to assume going into the final week, the rankings are Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, Oregon. And so if Ohio State loses and they decide to keep them in, they would literally have to say, okay, Ohio State would have to go to 4, Oregon move up to 3, and Tennessee drop all the way out. It would be an absolute disaster if they did some bullshit like that.
Well, they
I'm not
couldn't look in that scenario. Look at the other teams that we've beat, the other teams that Ohio State's beat, the other teams Michigan's beat. You start looking at all of the resumes. Just take out the names, look at the
Well,
numbers.
Michigan would be undefeated.
We win that one
They'd
easy.
be in.
Yeah, right. But look at who Ohio State's beaten. Look who we beaten. Resume side by side with the names out. Easy decision.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, Ohio State would have played 3 ranked teams, lost to 1. And with no wins over top 10 teams, while we would have 2 over top 10 teams. So, and maybe a win over the SEC champion.
Well, yeah,
Man,
and then also Ohio State would be sitting at home too on conference championship weekend.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ohio
I don't
State
see
would have
any
to be
way.
eliminated.
Anyway.
Yeah, I just hope
No.
the committee punishes these fucking schools for this bullshit. I can't believe Herbie said that these schools should schedule bullshit non-conference games. Just like what is a 70-0 win over, Southeast Missouri State add to your resume? It's a bye week.
But I think Herbie's point, and I don't like Herbie. None of us do, but I don't like Herbie. But I think his point is if the committee's going to take an undefeated conference champion, why risk it in the non-conference?
That is his
I
point.
think that,
Yeah.
That's lame as fuck.
huh?
That is his point, but that's lame as fuck. And if that's what it turns into, that all these schools just play shitty non-conference schedules and try to go undefeated in their conference.
I didn't take it that way. I didn't take it as they should actually do that. I took it as, yeah, that's bullshit. That shouldn't be the standard. That shouldn't be okay. That shouldn't be what we're going for here. We need to be scheduling tough opponents and really hashing out who's the best team, not, keeping it ambiguous by playing nobody until the end of the season. And
You
then
said-
likely getting shit on in the actual big game you play.
He said the exact opposite of that though.
Yeah, I mean, he
Because Oregon-
essentially said that
Maybe I
Oregon,
misheard him. Maybe I misunderstood, but I took that as him saying, yeah, that's the strat with the system we got.
Yeah.
No, he was saying that Oregon is being punished because they scheduled Georgia and got their ass whooped. That they should have just scheduled a shitty team.
Yeah, right.
I'll have to go back. I'll have to go back and
Facetiously,
listen
right?
to it.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, would you be surprised if after this season, all the other conferences start canceling non-conference games with the SEC and just fill in with
That's what-
bullshit?
That's what Michigan did. And that's what some of the analysts were saying. They were saying, look, Michigan canceled home and homes with, I don't remember who
It was Georgia.
Was it Georgia or UCLA? It was somebody. Somebody
Well,
that should have been.
the one
a
with
decent
Georgia, the SEC actually canceled. Oh, sorry, that was Oklahoma. Never mind.
No. So it should have been a decent non-conference game. I think it was UCLA. They canceled and replaced it with like UConn or Hawaii. And they're like, the commit, this is basically without coming out and saying it, they're like, this is unacceptable. This is an unacceptable non-conference schedule for one of the big boys. And it really, it's a joke. It's a joke. I mean, if Michigan beats Ohio State has to go. If they put a one-loss Ohio State in over Tennessee, I'll tell you what, man, and I think they very well might, unless they decide to leave out Oregon. But if Oregon wins the Pac-12, I think Oregon's going to get in, which is going to be crazy as fuck too. That's going to be crazy too. To get shellacked by 46 points, to get beat by 46 points, and then go into a spot where you're going to play that team again in the first round. Are you kidding?
I don't think
Are
they're
you
going.
kidding?
You don't think they'll win out, or you don't think they'll get in?
No, I don't think they're. If they put Oregon in, they're not going to make them play Georgia first round. I don't think they're going to.
I don't know. Think
I
about the
think
narrative.
I think they will for sure.
Redemption arc.
Especially with Bo Nix coming out and talking shit, and Oregon saying they want a rematch.
Mm-hmm.
This team got their ass kicked at the beginning of the season. They grew, they developed, they progressed over the next 3 months, and now they're here with a chance to redeem themselves. They could sell that on TV all day long.
And at the end of the day, they don't want an SEC team in the national title. So if they can give Oregon a shot at a rematch and what they think would be feeding Tennessee to Ohio State, I think they'll fucking do it.
Absolutely.
I see. I think they're going to feed Tennessee to Georgia. They're going to try to eliminate an SEC team. They don't want to have an all SEC championship.
I don't agree. But either way, it doesn't matter. You got to win too. I really don't. That I can't. The goal is to get in. It will be fucked up if they do that, but you got to win twice. I mean, it is what it is. Whether you got to beat Georgia in the first game or second game, you got to beat them. So it is what it is. That would be a dick move. I don't think they'll do that. I think the loser of Michigan Ohio State, I think, is gone. And nobody has really made the push for both to get in unless it's chaos. And I think it would require Oregon losing a game, USC losing a game, and I think that's it. LSU not winning the SEC and TCU losing. So I think those four things, then you can start to talk about two Big Ten teams getting in, which quite frankly, I wouldn't give a shit. Because then you talk about two SEC, two Big Ten, and you're definitely staring down an all SEC national championship. Because if we get Ohio State at 2, we'll beat them and Georgia will kill Michigan or the loser of that game.
In that scenario where those teams all have 2 losses, you don't think there's any path for North Carolina or Clemson to get an ACC champ 1 loss?
I don't think so.
No, their schedule
Yeah.
is too bad, and they're getting no respect in the rankings.
No, I don't think so. I think the ACC is truly done.
I think you get anchored by where you're originally ranked, and
Yeah.
it's just harder and harder the further into the season you get to actually move.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I think the saving grace for us has been the fact that we have such a high-powered offense that a lot of our scores have looked impressive. Because remember, we were unranked when the season started. If we were out there
Right.
winning games 17-13, 24-20, we wouldn't be getting the respect that we are.
Right. We'd still be at 15.
Yeah.
Well, and the Bama game was the big one, but the thing, well, in LSU, And listen, it's gonna be a tough case, even with LSU losing the SEC title game. It's gonna be tough with them being a top 10 team. The way that we beat them to leave us out. Ohio State is the only team that's a threat to get left out just based on brand, I think, at this point. They're the only team that I think they're gonna lose in the last week, and the committee says, well, we still think they're the best overall team, because they already did it once. They flat out said it. We think they're the best all-around team, so we put them at 2. So that is a little bit scary. But I think there will be room, because I think TCU goes away, and I think Ohio State will beat Michigan. I know, Zach, you don't, but I think everybody else kind of thinks that Ohio State will probably win that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's in Ohio State. And to me, the most frustrating thing is that it's like every year we just reset everyone's memories and pretend like the SEC isn't head and shoulders above the rest. Like at the end of the day, you have one loss in the SEC. You deserve to fucking be there. And that, to me, that's all there really is to it. Obviously, I have a bias, but it's based on what we've seen on the field.
Yeah, they're actually saying that because Tennessee lost in such a dominating fashion to Georgia, that's part of what put Oregon back in the mix. Because they're saying, look, Georgia's just head and shoulders above everybody. So it's hard to fault a team for losing that game poorly, because that's the clear best team in the country. And so they're saying that actually justifies Oregon taking that ass whipping early.
Okay, but if they say that, logic holds that we still lost by a much smaller margin. So you can't put us below Oregon.
I agree. I don't think Oregon can jump us even with a Pac-12 championship, but I do think that it gets a little bit more scary at that point. If they beat Utah, UCLA, or Oregon State, and then USC or UCLA in the title, I think Oregon gets in.
Yeah, that we would definitely need TCU to lose for me to feel comfortable at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I don't think there's any room for Ohio State or Michigan to stick around.
I don't think there can be room for them anyway. Their schedules are just too bad.
Nobody's really made a case for that. So,
well, the last time they made a case for it was when Florida destroyed Ohio State in the national title like 15 years ago.
Oh, 15 years ago, Zach.
I know, but do you remember that shit when they were like, I think Michigan lost to Ohio State like 10-7.
I know. We just talked about this on the last episode. It was 15 years ago. I don't think anybody's trying to make that case today. I haven't really heard anybody make a push for 2 Big Ten teams. I think that everybody has sort of conceded that they really didn't do themselves any favors with this out of conference scheduling. And listen, Ohio State, I mean, everybody keeps talking about, well, the game was crazy. They only won by 14, but there's 40-mile-an-hour winds. And I heard Dan Patrick today. I was watching his show, and he goes, I keep hearing everybody talk about the 40-mile-an-hour wind. He goes, but Ohio State's supposed to have all the best players on the field. And he goes, and they did both play in the wind, right? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like, why do they keep making this excuse? Like, they both played in the wind. It's so bizarre, and it's so annoying.
But also, North sucks.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is I think it's a weirder argument when you consider that Ohio State is clearly outclassing Northwestern. They're not a team like Iowa or somebody who even recruits decently on defense. Like Northwestern is garbage.
Northwestern is 1-9.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a weird argument to make when they're that bad.
Right. That's what Dan Patrick was saying. Is like, what is everybody talking about with this win? Like, you're supposed to beat their ass. They're 1-9. Why does the win matter? You all everybody played in the wind that day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bizarre. It's fucking bizarre. They just, anything they can do to give these guys a pass. It's infuriating. It really is. But it is what it is. All right. Any last thoughts on the playoff rankings? And then we'll get back to normal recording for our Thursday episode.
Go Vols.
Anything? Go Vols. Hey, we need big wins from here on out. I'm worried about this Missouri game. We got to come out fast. So.
Yeah, I definitely don't like that it's a noon game, but
we need to put up 50 minimum every game.
For sure. For sure. All right, guys, thanks for jumping in for the impromptu recording, and we'll catch up for the next one. See you.
All right, see you.